Here we have the components of the SAM or Security Access Module Disintegrator. This is the receiver. It allows the various components to slide along it. We have the bolt and the bolt spring which slide along the receiver and are connected to it via a trip mechanism. We have the receiver outer tube which protects the outside of the unit. We have the bolt assembly which has the cartridges and also holds the security access module itself. We have the outer tube which is embedded in the building either by being drilled in and grouted in into concrete or into timber or even welded into place. We have the actual cartridges themselves. These are standard Hilti or Ramset cartridges. We have the cable that's actually used to connect the security access module. That's a security access module there. It's exactly like a SIM from a mobile phone, so you'd be familiar with the way the cable and that would work, and it connects to an external device through a standard ribbon cable. The security access modules themselves are exactly like SIMs. In fact, we use SIMs sometimes for testing thanks to Virgin Mobile because they're much cheaper than the actual SAMs. These are safety pins that are used to set the unit in place until the unit's actually ready to be put in position. We use a small piece of shrink wrap in order to protect the module once it's in position. These ball bearings and these small pins are used as part of the trip mechanism or firing mechanism so that they hold everything in place until somebody attempts to remove it. We have a couple of tools that are used here. This is simply a tool to allow us to compress the spring without injuring ourselves. And we have some picks and chisels which are useful for removing the fired cartridges when you're reloading the unit. What I'm going to do now is to show you how to set up the unit and install it in place. The first step is to get it into a primed condition, and I'll show you how to do that. We use a special tool that's just simply used to help us compress the spring. We take a bolt, a spring and a receiver, and we put that on top of that so that this small hole, which the safety pin will go through, is aligned with the slot in the tool. We push that down to the point that we can put the safety pin in, and that's the first part of the priming process. Now I'll show you the second stage of the priming process. First thing we do is we align the hole in the receiver and the hole in the bolt so that it's possible to drop a ball bearing in through that hole. Secondly, we use gravity to drop one of these stainless steel pins down the center of the receiver, and that falls just on the other side of the ball bearing in there. Now we can drop another ball bearing on the other side of that, and we now can rotate the bolt through 90 degrees, trapping the pin and the ball bearing, and we can pull the safety pin out now safely, and the unit is primed. The next stage of the process, we simply install the security access module, like the SIM in your mobile phone, into the mount and click it in place like that. And we also put some heat shrink around the outside of that, basically to protect it from any electrical connections that could occur with the metal of the unit. The next step is simply to install the SAM and its frangible mount and cable into the breech and take its cable out as so. You can also now install the cartridge into the breech, and over the top of that put the receiver outer tube. We're now ready to put the receiver completely together with the breech. Note, by the way, that the receiver, once it's screwed into place, you won't be able to see this once we assemble it, actually holds that cartridge from falling out. Before you do final assembly, you put some anaerobic locking compound like Loctite on this location, here, and just along here. That will stop somebody trying to attack the device from attempting to unscrew it in situ. Now we're ready to install the whole assembly. We have the primed receiver there. We can simply slide that down the center there, and it screws into the breech like so. That will trap the cartridge in place, and this unit is now what we call set. It won't go off like it is now, but in the next stage we can make it so that it will go off if it is removed. Before setting the unit in place, it's possible to put microdot or dye bomb or other forensic material down the inside of the outer tube, and that's useful to mark an attacker. In this next stage, you have to imagine that this is installed inside the building. It could be grouted into concrete in the floor, or it could be welded into the building frame and concrete poured around it. But this unit is fixed and can't be moved. All right. The whole assembled assembly, right, is here, and we can slide that down into it, and it sits on a little pin. As soon as we push it into the unit, that pin will push the trigger assembly out of place, and any further attempt to remove it will cause the charge to detonate. So I'm now going to push that into place. It is now set. So any attempt to remove it will now cause it to detonate. We're now going to demonstrate what happens when somebody attempts to remove the unit from the wall. So you must imagine that this is embedded in a wall or embedded in the floor of concrete, and this cable is running to the remote unit, right, to the door reader or whatever. So somebody trying to attempt to use it probably will pull on the cable, but it doesn't actually matter how they pull on it. If somebody attempts to remove the SAM in the field, this is what happens. Any attempt to pull this out will cause it to explode. Alright, what I'm going to do now that this has been detonated, we'll have a look at what happened and see what the result is of what happened. Firstly, you note that all of the flash and debris went out the back of the unit, down the bottom of that tube. So there was no dangerous debris or anything that came out the front. I was actually quite safe out the front, although it's very noisy. It's actually quite safe. The other thing, what you can do now is unscrew the unit, and we'll see that the various ball bearings and that will fall out as we disassemble it, and we can see that the cartridge has been set off, and that we have some pretty nasty damage now to the security access module, right, which we're now going to pull out of the unit. In fact, there's a hole completely through the security access module that we've pulled out of the unit, and what I'll do now is just cut that up and remove all the bits so you can see how much damage has been done to the actual SAM itself. Okay, let's have a look at how much damage we've done. We'll just get away some of that shrink wrap, and we'll open up the cartridge, the mount itself, and pull the SAM out. Now this is all pretty damaged. Okay, so now we've got the SAM itself out, and as you can see, it's actually completely blown away the silicon in it, and in fact what happens is the shock wave, when it hits the chip, shatters the silicon pretty effectively. You can see the cracked silicon where the chip has been completely obliterated internally. It's the shock wave that actually does that. You can see here we've got a few other chips that have been blown up by it, right? And the point of this, of course, is that the silicon is so badly damaged that there's no possibility of anybody ever recovering any keys off that, or being able to use them ever again. So as long as you've physically secured this adequately, and obviously you also provide logical levels of security as well. But the end result is that there's just no possibility of getting access to those keys from that particular SAM.